Here they come. Hi, everybody who's just arriving. Welcome. We're super excited today to have some really fun and exciting people to talk to us about all of the things that are going on. So I'll wait till we fill up before I make, formal introductions. But thanks for coming. And thanks to the panelists for being here today and taking some time out of your day to talk about what's going on in the world. We'll probably give it 2 or 3 minutes. So it's interesting, we have a good cross section of states represented here. We have Heather in New York City, I'm in Massachusetts, Garrett's in Wisconsin, Megan is in New Jersey, and Michael's in Missouri, and Shay's in California.
That's a good representation.
Yeah. And that's just on the panelist side. All right, we're gonna get started. So hello and welcome. I'm Joanna Roach. I'm the Executive Director of GSN Planet. I'm really happy to be on Zoom webinar this afternoon with my really very esteemed colleagues, right? Heather Mikesell from American Spa Magazine, Garrett Mersberger from so you are at, tell me where you're at,
Blue Harbor Resort and Spa in Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Yes, welcome. Also from ISPA, chairman of the ISPA board, and Michael Tompkins from Hutchinson Consulting. And the other woman you can see is Megan Leffler from GSN Planet, who's actually running all of the behind the scenes mechanisms that brings this to us today. So welcome. So what I'd love to do is just bring you guys all around and have you introduce yourselves and sort of say where you are and how this is kind of impacting you in your world. And let's start with you, Heather.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Heather Mikesell with American Spa Magazine, and I'm here in New York. I feel like I've been in lockdown for about 2 weeks now. I know we're not calling it a lockdown, but that's pretty much what it feels like. Haven't really left the house in, like I said, 2 weeks. So it's a little crazy, but what's even crazier is I feel like we're all working harder than ever before. Just because there's so much news coming out right now, which is changing constantly. But I'm happy to be here, so thanks for having me.
Thanks. Garrett?
I already said I'm Garrett Mersberger. I'm the Director of Sales, Marketing, and Spa at Blue Harbor Resort in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I'm also the chairman of the board for the International Spa Association, so I'll be wearing kind of many hats today. I feel like an operator hat I'll be wearing at times, my ISPA hat at times, and maybe even like my stay-at-home hat at times. So we'll see where that goes.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're really very grateful to have you. Michael?
Mike Tompkins from Hutchinson Consulting. I guess today's day 11 for me in the house, and I'm going through a process probably like everyone else is out there. And, I think that what I'm excited about is seeing the changes that have been in our industry, like people connecting. We are an industry that's built on connection. And so initiatives like this, I think, are quite helpful. But, on a personal note, I'm trying to find things to keep me busy. We have had an impact to our business as almost every hotel has put hiring holds on positions. And so, we went from our best year ever to all of a sudden putting the brakes on everything. And a lot of decisions have had to be made. And so, we're acting in small steps and gathering the information from large umbrellas.
Great. So let's start by talking a little bit about what we are all doing sort of personally for our own self-care, and then we'll kind of get into the larger conversation about our various industries and what the impact is. So let's actually start with you, Garrett. How are you managing this at home? What types of things are you doing? How's this impacting your family?
Sure. So my wife and 3 children were all kept up here in the house. My kids have started online school, as I'm sure many of your children up there have as well. We're trying to get out of the house as much as possible, believe it or not. So whether that means just going on a hike to which round trip for us is a mile, so we do that every day. Go take a hike to the mailbox. The state of Wisconsin, starting tomorrow, goes under basically the shelter in place. So while we have been working from home and under similar restrictions to everyone, it really goes into effect tomorrow. And so we'll continue to be at home. We're trying to do things as a family. One way to look at this is it's a gift I get to have, where I get to spend every day with my children playing games, at home videos instead of TV, which is, and we've gotten out puzzles and games and just, try to get together as a family and to make the most of it.
Great. Garrett did warn us in advance, everyone, that his internet is a little sketchy today, but we'll make the best of it. Michael, what about you?
Well, I've been actively engaging in social media, as probably many of the people on this call know. So I started off with doing what I do best under a crisis, and that is go right to comfort food and cooking, which helps bring down my stress level. And so, I went through that series, which lasted about 7 days. And, thankfully, I'm not eating all of it. I'm bringing some to my mom and my family when I can get out, which is once a day, and also giving to my neighbors. And then as of 2 days ago, I started a cleaning frenzy. So I'm on the cleaning frenzy. But probably the biggest tip that I got that's most helpful was to keep a schedule and to set a schedule. And so, I get up every day and I make breakfast and then think about what my day is going to be. I call my business partners, even if we don't need to talk about anything, just to keep in touch with them, and then try to, reach out to industry folks to see how they're doing. And sometimes it's just been a simple call that, is friendly, and other times it's become something that is more deliberate and is tackling an issue. And see, you can hear my dog in the background probably. And so, it is what it is. And I'm also taking a nap to fill in things, which is giving me a second run in the evening.
Okay, that's great. I like the nap idea. Heather, what about you? You're in Brooklyn, right?
I am. I'm in Park Slope, Brooklyn. So I'm about 3 blocks from the park here, and which is one of the second largest park in the city. Unfortunately, because it's the only place for any of us to go, it is a mob scene there. So my boyfriend and I have been trying to, it's really much the only place we have to go, but we're trying to do the perimeter of the park, and just because people are on top of each other there, and it doesn't necessarily feel that safe and that into nature, but we're making the best of it, going in off times, off hours and such. My boyfriend is pretty much, we don't actually live together, but during this period we kind of are. So it's very cozy in a nice 1-bedroom in New York City living. But we're making the best of it. And we're actually taking Yale's happiness course, which is available online free. So the science of well-being, which is awesome. We just started that this week. I figure we could all use a little happiness right now. So, and I'm actually looking at a lot of the other classes. Work has actually been really intense lately. So, but I'm kind of thinking of that as a luxury, because I know not everyone has that luxury right now, being able to work and such. So that's filling up a lot of my day. But in terms of self-care and such, I feel like I'm also taking advantage of a lot of the online classes, like yoga and things like that are streaming. I know that Peloton is offering like a free month subscription, I believe. And there's also Core Power Yoga, which I'm getting online for free. So I'm just kind of jumping around, trying different things like that when I can't get outside. So I think that's really helping. And it helps that I'm also an introvert. So give me a book and I'm happy as can be. So that makes a big difference.
That's great. Thanks for sharing all of that. So next question is, what kind of feedback are you all hearing from the industry? And maybe go to Michael and to Garrett. So we'll start with you, Heather. What are you hearing from the industry? What are your contacts telling you?
I'm hearing a lot of different things, actually. I mean, I think there's a lot of fear out there just because this is so sudden. And I feel like for a lot of, small businesses, it's something that's really, really challenging to deal with. So there's that part of it, but I'm also hearing a lot of really wonderful stories about people that are giving back and ways that businesses are contributing. And I think that's kind of helping offset a lot of the fear. And just when you can kind of focus on the positive and what you can do to kind of help in the crisis. You know, I've seen stories of estheticians who are giving up their masks and donating them, and companies that are doing that as well. I know like Babor has reached out to all their spas and asked them to contribute to local hospitals and things like that. So I think it's really those stories that are kind of heartwarming, and I think it makes us all feel much better if we know that there's something we could actually do to help to end this crisis sooner than later. So that's a big thing. I think another thing that we're trying to really cover is how do you handle the employment issue? You know, not everyone can afford to keep their staff on. In fact, most people probably can't afford to do that. So how you deal with the unemployment issues and things like that. Those are stories that we're covering on a constant basis, and just trying to provide resources for people basically, so they know where to go, where to get their questions answered, and really where you take it from there and what you can be doing in this time. I know there's a lot of talk about, should there be like online training and things like that, which I think is really important to be able to use this time, you know, for something good. So it actually feels much better if you can know that you're filling your time with something that's going to be fruitful in the long run, that's going to help you propel you into the future. And I just think that makes it much easier to think that you're moving forward as opposed to just standing still.
Sure. Michael, do you want to take that question next?
Yes, you know, I think that it's been all over the board in terms of what's going on out in the world there for us, whether it's hospitality or food and beverage or senior living, which certainly has been stable, but a little bit more chaotic in terms of, you know, people being nervous around COVID-19. You know, for hospitality, everything happened so fast. And so people didn't really have the opportunity to react or have the emotional piece be healed from that. And so, you know, I know that last Thursday, you know, Hutchinson had about 70 job postings. And by Saturday, 67 of those were on hold. So in 48 hours, we went from, you know, fully operating business to all of a sudden, whoops, bam. And so, you know, it was gathering, what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of the staff? What are we going to do to make our hospitality partners feel comforted? How could we support them? And then at the same time, looking from a bigger perspective in the industry of how can we help the industry in the spa world in general? What are some of the things that we can do to keep connected with them? And what is the messaging that we want to send out? And how can we help? And what are things that we can do that are free or near free that can help people? And so, you know, one of the things that I started to look at first for people was how can they do something at home that makes them feel productive and makes them feel like they're doing something that supports the work that they have, whether they want to stay at their job or whether they want to look for another job, because obviously in times of displacement, this is when people actually start to look. And so I'm telling people to build your network. You know, I think about all the different business cards that I've collected, and I'm looking at a stack of them here that I have from different conferences that I've attended. Back basically over 3.5 years worth. There's probably close to 1,000 business cards there. And I've never done anything with them. And now I'm feeding them into a database system through an app so that I can actually contact all of these people. I've wanted to do that for 3 years. But, you know, LinkedIn has been especially useful. And so when I friend a new person on LinkedIn and they accept, then I go to their list and find 10 of their friends that might somehow connect to our industry or the work that we do, and I friend 10 of them. And so, you know, it's a simple thing that takes 2 or 3 minutes, but at the same time, it's helping to build my LinkedIn profile and the connections that I have. Doing the same thing with Facebook, but a little bit more in a personal way.
Garrett?
All right, well, I turned my video off, so hopefully you can still hear me. I'm hoping this helps with the internet. So apparently I took a shower today for nothing. But with that said, the feedback I'm getting from the industry, if I put my ISPA hat back on May 13th, we put out a survey and we had over 400 people respond over the last, and while this, I feel like data changes every hour, so some of these stats may be a little old, but as of yesterday, over 80% of spas who responded had closed their doors already. 16% of resource partners had closed their doors. Over 25% had laid off all of their employees already. And perhaps the most alarming statistic to me was that 38% of spas expect a detrimental impact on their business when this thing actually does end. And that's where I feel like we as a community have to come together and really help as much as we can so that we save each and every spa that we can. The thought of losing maybe 38% of our spas is scary. And so this is where we as a community really need to come together and help support them and do whatever we can so that when this does end, we come back stronger and more powerful than ever. And that's really ISPA's a focal point right now.
Okay, so I'm wondering if we can, the next question is, what can we do to support both the workforce and the community? So Garrett, we'll probably flip back to you and then we'll just shake this up and move it around a little bit. So Garrett, what do you think are some steps we can take to support the community and the workforce?
Well, we are a community, and I think the more we can continue to reach out and help each other, from small, fun little things of what you can do at home to keep your mind active, to stay healthy. I'm excited that ISPA is going to be starting our workout Wednesdays that you're going to be able to see on social media. The rumor is that Todd Shaw from Techno Gym is going to be doing our first video tomorrow, so check that out. We've already mentioned a few. We've seen resource partners around the world donate gloves and disinfectants to local hospitals. And if I put on my operator hat, what I'm trying to do within my community is really help my staff, even though we're somewhat laid off, is get them some hours to help supplement their income. And also keep them, I'd call it almost loyal to my spa, so that when this is over, I'm not scratch. I've been able to stay in contact, try to give them hours, and get them involved as much as possible. And then from a community standpoint, you know, I'm also an active member, an elder in my church, and just this morning we had a call about what we're doing to help those members within our church community. And maybe you're not in a church community, but you have a gym community or a spa community that you're working with. We've offered to help get groceries for them, offer to help with their financial support should they need it, to even just going to their homes and helping them set up online like Zoom calls like this so that they can see people's faces when they're locked in their homes for so long. I feel like we live in a world of fear right now. And we really need to have love overcome that fear. And that's where we as a community, again, whether it's your church community, your family, your gym family, your spa family, we need to get that love out and support as many as we can right now.
Thank you. Yes, Michael.
Sure. So, you know, I think the very first thing that I'm doing for my community is isolating. Having been a nurse for almost 15 years before I got into this industry, I know that the only way that we're going to beat this virus is by flattening the curve. And how we can do that is to have as much self-isolation time as possible. So, you know, I really consider that to be my toughest job because I'm an extrovert. And so I've had to find other ways of interacting with the industry, the community, and my own team. And so, you know, I think the first is lead by example, show people how to be resilient in this time, and most importantly, give facts rather than opinions. What I haven't done is I haven't fed into the hysteria of this company's closing or that one's laying off or they're furloughing or, you know, all of that sort of thing. I'm trying to think on the positive of how we can help our industry people rather than, you know, feed the hysteria that's going on. And so I've really reserved, you know, sharing anything about the industry except for things that I know are factual. And that then eliminates a lot of the noise that's out there. The second thing is in trying to, you know, help operators come up with ideas, the staycation, the giveaway marketing, so gift certificates in the future, and, you know, spa at home. And spa at home in particular because I've been thinking a lot about the resource partners and how much they support all that we do every day in our industry, whether it's the conferences that we attend that, we pay for booths for, or the product lines that they share with us, or the materials that they give us to sell to our customers and our guests. I'm thinking of our consumer in a very different way. And so some of you may have seen on Facebook, I've started a series where I'm evaluating masks. So I'm literally on my 4th mask right now, and that video will be going out tonight. But because of that, I had, I think, 7 companies contact me that they want to send me their mask to try. And it's given me a lot of really good feedback around what works, what I think has been good for men or what's been good for women. But I've been sharing those on Facebook. And interestingly enough, I have 3 followers on Facebook who have purchased masks online of the ones that I've recommended. And that means they're buying from our vendors. And so if we start to share the work that we do and the great products that are out there that can support our resource partners, then they're going to come back sooner. I think that the money that they give and everything that they do for our industry supports every single thing that we do. And so this is a time where we have to support the resource partners. You're still on mute.
I agree with everything that you said. Heather, why don't you share your perspective?
I think that's just it. I'm just trying to keep perspective on this whole thing and think of it as temporary. And I think that's the biggest thing, because I think it's so easy to start spiraling about like just how fast it happened and all of that and how scary it is. But at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? My loved ones are safe. They're healthy right now. And we're all going to get through this. And we just have to keep thinking that this is just temporary. And I actually think there are a lot of lessons to be taught from this. I had a friend yesterday who sent me something that Bill Gates had actually written up about it. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I have to say it was such a hopeful letter. And it was all about the lessons that we should take away from this whole crisis. And it was just so inspiring. And it's something that I just keep going back to and reading. And I will definitely be showing it somewhere because I feel like if you haven't seen it, I think you could probably just Google it and it'll pop up. But it was just, you look at some of the things that are happening right now and you kind of, you always want to have an answer to why it's happening. And, a lot of times there is no real answer, but, you can look at the positives of this as well, the silver linings. It may not seem like it, but you look at how the environment is improving, the air pollution over China and things like that. And so I try to just look at it as Mother Nature's healing herself in some way. We have to stay put. This is temporary. We need to slow down. But there are some silver linings in there if you look hard for them. And, cleaning up air pollution and the way we think about our environment and the global planet at large. Those are things that we can really take away from this experience. And I think that I just pray that we don't forget them immediately when it's over. But I think those are the things that give me perspective and help me think that we are going to get through this. And like I said, it is temporary. But to help all of our partner spas and things like that get through it, we're really looking at doing, our website. We've got resources and things like that. We've created a resource hub for everyone. And we're trying to cover those stories that basically, like how can you boost gift card sales and things like that? And how do you communicate with your employees on a daily basis, or not on a daily basis, but, a couple times a week, so that you're all staying in touch, because it's also very lonely for certain people and you can feel very isolated. And so it's nice to know that your team is still there, even if you're not seeing them every day. It's nice to know that there is a game plan, that you're all going to be back together at some point and just, checking in each week. And so I think we're trying to cover really how different spas are doing that and how they're doing it effectively and how they're keeping everyone in the loop. And so that there is a plan of action when this starts to get under control, basically.
Great.
Joanna, I happen to also, put on my operator hat and start thinking about, well, what are the trends that are happening out there that I can combat when we open our doors again as a spa director or a spa manager? And these are the things that I've been thinking of. So there was a run on toilet paper, and everybody knows how ridiculous that was. And then it was hand sanitizer and bleach. You still can't get hand sanitizer or bleach in almost every single store that's out there. Well, everybody is using hand sanitizer and bleach, and it's doing 2 things. It is drying up your hands. It is ruining your skin. It is bleaching it out and drying out your pores. Not now, but for months to come. because you're ruining your natural flora of your skin. So what I'm thinking about is what hand treatments are going to come out in the next 3 months when I first open. How can I send that out to my customers who are coming into the spa? And then, of course, how do I return the microbiome to my skin naturally? So those, products that have probiotics in them, can I use them on my hands? When you're using your hands that have bleach on it and you're touching your face, you're now killing all the natural flora on your face. So those are the things that I'm starting to think about, is how can we combat the trends that are out there that people are doing?
Yeah, I agree. One of the questions that someone wrote in is, what are customers going to be looking for in the future? And I think you've definitely just identified one of those things. Does anybody else want to chime in here? Heather, Garrett?
I think immunity boosting treatments are going to be really huge. And I think that's even before this really peaked. I think everyone was thinking that way because, you really realize like wellness is something that we all need to be thinking about all the time, because especially in this crisis, your health is everything. If you can recover from something like COVID-19, it's like, these are the things that you want to be thinking about. Like, how do you stay healthy? And how do you keep those around you healthy? So I think it's just kind of a new perspective on how overreaching it is and how important it is to everybody.
And I would add, this is Garrett, I would add that I think you're going to see, especially right at the beginning, spas are going to want to be very clear and upfront on their sanitation policies, on what they're doing from a treatment SOP standpoint. I know we were kind of going into that when this all happened, and now I think people are going to be even more aware of that. We also saw, a growing trend in treatments without therapists. That's been, has been growing, and maybe that's going to grow even more or more quickly when we first come back to watch. So those are two things I would say. And then last but not least, I guess we're in a time, as I said earlier, of fear, and stress levels are through the roof. And where did people go? The last time we had an economic downturn was they went to spas to recover from that stress. And so I think they are going to be looking to come back, and we need to be prepared and ready for when those doors open again.
Joanna, just to add, humans are creatures of habit. And so the longer we're home, the longer we're going to be developing new habits. I know that I'm at some point here going to start exercising on a more regular basis, not just walking my dog, because I just need it to help handle my stress. But how can we continue the healthy habits that people get during this time in the spa environment? And, I think about creating rituals within the services, like reawakening services, where you bring people back into the spa, and maybe the first couple of services are solitary, and then you build on that to where they're, a group shared salt room or a meditation, and then it's a full-on exercise class in the afternoon. People are going to be very leery about returning, so let's bring them through that process of reawakening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I think some of the other questions that folks have are really about staffing and what are the policies around laying staff off and bringing them back, and how is that managed in the larger spa environment, and what is that communication like? And probably, Michael, a good place to start is you.
Well, I think it all depends on your state laws, state labor laws, and then also it depends on what your company's policy is going to be as this happens. I know that we have done nothing at Hutchinson except for continue our business as usual, and that's because we're waiting to see what comes out from the small business associations and small businesses from Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And I also belong to a group called Entrepreneurs Organization, and we had a meeting earlier where one of the advisors there said, don't lay off, because there's talk that, and again, this is not fact, this is rumor that's out there. There was talk that if you laid someone off, that you wouldn't be eligible for your employee salaries to be covered. So they were suggesting that people actually furlough as opposed to lay off, and maybe reduced hours or reduced timing with hours or job share. What we are seeing is that the people who are furloughed or laid off have actually, because of labor laws, been encouraged to not work during that time. And so you have to be very careful to make sure that the staff that you're maybe not compensating anymore, you can't call them up and say, hey, can you work on this treatment to put this list back together? It's sort of like, how do you do it yourself, and how do you get volunteers engaged to actually build those things yourself? And so, you know, I think those things will be unfolding, particularly as some of the bailout options come from Congress. But right now, they've been really individual. What typically happens is that, you know, 80% of people will come back to you and really start to rebuild with you and alongside of you. You know, very sad to read about the bankruptcy of MindSpa, and I'm going to bring them up because they have a great number of employees. What I did the day after I saw that announcement was I got on LinkedIn, and everyone who was on Mind that was there, whether they were a therapist or a manager, I friended the ones, particularly with longevity. I saw a post on Facebook where a woman had worked there 20 years. So if she's worked there 20 years and been through the ups and downs of that company, the acquisitions from other companies, the downturn of the economy, and yet she was still there and still wanted to go back to work, isn't that somebody you would want to employ? Well, it's somebody I want to employ, and it's somebody that I want to put in Hutchinson's database and find a job for. And so these are the things that I think that we need to look at. How can we help the people that are out there? Because there will be 20% that we lose through attrition. And so how can we keep everyone on our staff engaged in a way that is not work-related, but maybe more personal on a communication like Facebook? So I think we're still at a standstill because it's so soon, but in the next couple of weeks, we'll find out more.
Mm-hmm. Garrett, what are you hearing there in that area?
Yeah, so I would echo a lot of what Michael just said. You definitely want to stay informed to your state and local laws and regulations. You want to make sure you're doing what's best for your employees. You don't want to prevent them, for example, to getting unemployment by giving them too many hours or too much income. So you want to be able to understand your and the only thing I would add to maybe Michael's comment, it would be to, you know, ISPA, I feel like since day one has really been trying to be a good partner to all of our members out there. And this is a great way for you to go out to ISPA's website, COVID-19 page that's updated literally every hour on different tips, laws, regulations, you name it, across the country. So.
Great, thank you. Heather, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is a topic that we're definitely covering, and we actually just launched a newsletter 3 times a week on the COVID virus and how companies are responding. It's basically geared for small businesses. So you can go to our site, sign up for it, and basically you'll get it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it just covers everything covered in terms of how it could impact your small business. So that's the key. So employment is a huge part of that. So.
Great.
Next. Joanna, can I just add one more thing? Job boards. So the ISPA job board, the Hutchinson job board, I know GreenSpot Network has a job board coming out real soon. People are going to job boards. We've seen a huge increase into our job board page. One of the things that we are adding to our job board page today is that those positions are on hold. Many of those positions are on hold, but that shouldn't prevent you from applying, because just about every single person who told us that their position was on hold also told us, but when we open back up, we want to have a group of candidates ready to supply to you. So Hutchinson recruiters are still interviewing people. We're still building narratives. We're putting files for each of our jobs. And when we get calls for a general manager or a spa director or a director of F&B from those HRDs and those general managers at the property, we're going to be able to give them 10 or 15 or 20 candidates right out of the gate. And so have people continue to check job boards.
Great. I think that's a great idea. I think one of the other things that we need to address as a community is how can we come together and craft a comeback strategy where all of the stakeholders are involved in how this industry positions that and executes that. So Garrett, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, I don't think I have necessarily the golden answer for the strategy, but I agree with you 100%. This is going to come back, and we need to come back bigger, better, stronger but different. I think the world is going to be very different in the spa industry, and we need to work together to work on that strategy. But also, I think we're going to have to gain back the consumer's confidence that we are a safe place, we are clean, we are following all the best practices. And so I think our spas are going to look very different. Our SOPs are going to look very different. Even our treatment menus, as we've talked a little bit, might look very different when we come back. And we need to be ready for that. So we really need to be spending that time now together on what that strategy looks like, so that when it does ready, and we can be there to help our customers.
Sure. Heather, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it is going to be a different landscape when we all come back, because I mean, also this is impacting not just the spa industry, obviously. So it's discretionary spending. So even though you're spending it for self-care and wellness, I feel like it's going to be challenging, because a lot of people just don't have that. It's going to take everyone a while to get back to where they were, and I think that's something that we have to think about. I mean, it's kind of, it's not the first time that the industry has gone through this. We've had recessions before. We've come through 9/11, where the thinking shifted from being all about luxury to, oh my God, this is about wellness, not luxury. But it seems to come. It seems to be a wave that we ride, and I think we just have to adjust to it. And I'm very interested to hear how the industry is going to adapt to that. I think Garrett had mentioned earlier that there's, we're seeing. I actually just wrote about a spa in our current issue. Of course, I'm totally blanking on the name. I believe it's Space Spa. It's in LA, but it's very interesting because it's very app-based. And I remember when I was writing about it, I was thinking, oh gosh, are people going to love this? Are they not going to love this? Is it taking up the human touch? You still have the therapist, but it's you check in with your app, so there's not a lot of human contact when you arrive and things like that, but all your preferences, you control the lighting, you control everything. So there is that sense that it's very, it goes back to what Michael was saying, how when you come into it, you kind of ease into it, being with other people. And this is kind of one of those instances where maybe it's the right spot at the right time, in the sense that, like, if everything's app-based except for the actual facial, you're kind of easing back into it. And we're all getting really comfortable with technology right now. So I actually think maybe we're going to see a little bit more technology in the treatment room. But at the end of the day, I think this industry is all about healing. And I think that's exactly what the world's going to need when this is over. And I think it's exactly what we need right now. So I think we just have to keep that in our minds, that this is what we do. We're here to heal. And that's what this industry is all about. And so I think we just need to keep that at the forefront.
I agree. Michael?
There's two things that I think of when I think about strategy. One is from an industry perspective, and one is as a business owner. From an industry perspective, an industry is not as nimble as your business is. So, I likened it to when I was chairman of ISPA. It was like moving an aircraft carrier. So you could move it small steps at a time, and it had to be very deliberate because you were affecting a mass amount of people. So, when I think about what the strategy that will be set is, I think of people like Global Wellness and Green Spa Network and ISPA, who will actually probably set that for us based on all of the information they get out of all of the participants that are out there in the world. And so when I say that, from a strategy perspective, I would say to participate. I have done every single thing that Green Spa has put out. I've been on every call. I've been a panelist on this. I've been on all of the calls for Global Wellness. I'm going to be doing the Live, Love, Spa facial thing that's coming up. I don't even know if I can announce that, but anything that someone has thrown at me, I said, yeah, I'll do it. What else do I have to do right now? So participating is going to give those who can help create the strategy the opportunity to hear our voices and to see what's going on out there to make those decisions.
So real time feedback.
Yeah, and then the second thing is the hiring process. Is that from a business perspective, which is nimble. And I can tell you, I'm gonna tell you from a failure that we had at Hutchinson Consulting that I'm actually kind of proud of. We tried to do recruiting in the spa and esthetician and massage industry, and it was very, very difficult. And it was difficult for a number of reasons, both from the licensed professional side and also from the hiring business side. But I can tell you our hiring processes are too long. What we found, particularly with massage therapists, from the time they applied, the interview, the test outs, and the offer had to be within 6 days or the massage therapist was gone. Now, I can tell you that many of the hiring processes that I've seen out there in the spa world is you send in your application, an administrative person gets it in HR, the HRD sees it, they set up a call, then they pass it along to the spa director, and then the spa director does an interview, then there's, this whole process becomes 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. You're going to lose the therapist. And in a tightening world out there that we already had before, it's going to become worse. So if I was setting the strategy operationally, I would set up a hiring process that actually works.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Okay. So one of the other questions are around, we're getting some questions about cleaning and about what the sort of standards are for maintaining cleanliness in spas and what we can do to promote those. And I think that, yes, there's all the ones that we all know because it's been promoted in the media, but how are we going to come together and adopt a standard set of cleaning protocols so that it's transparent, I think, both for operators, for providers, and for the consumer? Anybody? Any of you want to take that on?
I don't know if I have too much to add to that, but being somewhat of a germaphobe, I have to say there are just certain things that I think, when you see it, when I walk into a treatment room and the therapist washes her hands, I immediately relax. Like that's something that just tells me like, okay, you're on it. I do think we're going to see more masks after this. I think everyone's going to be wearing masks. I think that, I think our whole perception of hygiene has changed and sanitation has changed. And I think we just have to, raise our standards because that's just, it's the world we're living in now. So I think anything spas can do to kind of make it transparent and as to what they're doing, I think it's going to put the spa goers at ease. For sure. I know it puts me at ease. So I'm assuming it's going to do the same for everyone else.
Right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, you just raised a great question, and the fact that we were all kind of quiet, I think answers that question. We are going to have to come back very different, and we need to use this time right now to look at all of those types of questions, those types of SOPs, and use this time wisely so that when we come back, we already have those new SOPs in place, those new policies, and we post those for people to see. We're very visual to our customers on our website, on our doors, on our intake forms, what we're doing. And, that's just one example of we need to think differently and we need to use this time wisely so that when we reopen our doors, our guests day one notice a change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it opens up the door also for some tech to come into this space and look at what things can be done differently. And there are some industries that we have not aligned with in the past that I think the door is open for us to align with them in terms of clean air, clean water, and what kind of products we're using to do cleaning.
I think that in terms of cleaning, that people are observant and learn in so many different ways. But I'm like Heather, when I get on a massage table, I'm listening to see if the therapist is washing their hands or not. That is just from 15 years of being a registered nurse. And so, I might change the flow of my protocols for my therapists, that they actually wash their hands twice. So when you bring in a client onto your massage table and you're asking them, here's where you put your jewelry, here's where you hang your robe, this is where you do all of that. I would encourage the massage therapist to actually be washing their hands as they're telling the guests that, and then leave the room and come back and wash their hands a second time. Because I think then it will get through to them, the cleanliness factor. The other piece is, when I think about clean, the very first sense that I think of is scent. And I can walk into a place and I can smell whether that air is clean or not. And so really doing things around aromatherapy that can heighten the senses. Mint is something that's known as being a clean scent, and that encourages healthy breathing. And so I would bring in a lot more aromatherapy into my spa, just to give that mind perspective and additional benefit of getting the clean scent into people's minds.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. So in terms of the timeline, what are you guys seeing in terms of when people might feel like it's safe, or all these events that our industry holds, and when it will be time to sort of resume our community gatherings? Heather, you probably have heard more than I have, possibly.
You know, honestly, I feel like it's so fluid, but I mean, most of my news is coming from our governor, Cuomo, so that's kind of how I've been playing it. It looks like the next 2 weeks are going to be really, really rough in New York, for sure. That's when we're supposed to hit our peak. But, you know, I think from what I'm hearing is, you know, we'll slowly start to get back, you know, once we're over, I would say probably another 2 months, to be honest with you, to be safe. Like, I think that's, I mean, and of course, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I take that for what it's worth. But that's just the sense I get for how things are going to roll out. And I think thinking that it's going to happen in 2 weeks, or, you know, is just not realistic. And I think we're thinking like later in the summer. And I think we also have to be paying attention to other countries where, you know, like China, to see how things are happening there. And, you know, if the numbers stay good there and people are getting back to normal and more people are developing immunity, and they have these tests that show us that we have some kind of immunity to it, then I think, you know, life can start to get back to normal for most people, I think. But again, I think that's going to really be due to the testing and such, like, and things like that. And the numbers, because we really don't know who's had it and who hasn't had it at this point. So. Good
point. Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Heather said. I mean, really, the government's going to decide the timing at a minimum of 2 months. You know, right now, I would say by day, but I'm really taking it more hour by hour. You know, in my hotel, I feel like every hour things are changing, whether that be the number of cancellations to, believe it or not, some future bookings to, this is all changing so fast that my hope and prayer, quite honestly, is that it changes just as fast for the positive at some point, and we come out of this, you know, quickly at the end. Whether that's realistic, I doubt it, but I'm hopeful that just as fast as this is changing every day, that we'll see that positive change on the back end as well.
Okay. Michael?
I would say maybe 3 things. One is support our medical community. They're asking for self-isolation. There's a reason for that, to flatten the curve. So encourage everybody as much as you can. The second part is, you know, what we don't want is, we don't want the hysteria at the grocery store to turn into the hysteria at hospitals. We want people to be able to get the access to care that they need. And I'm sure that as this evolves, and particularly in places like New York, people who get a cough or a cold are going to run to the hospital because they think they have coronavirus, and only overwhelm the medical staff. So the medical field has put out 4 or 5 different things that you need to be exhibiting before you actually go to get tested. Please, you know, encourage people to make sure that they have more than 1 or 2 or 3 symptoms. The second thing is, I don't know how long it'll last, but I know when I was a medical professional, that the viruses either thrived in cold or thrived in heat. There were very few that thrived in either one and went back and forth. And so, you know, we're still with the dismal, wet, cold weather here in the Midwest. I'm hoping at some point we'll get sunlight. You know, back 20 years ago when VRE and MRSA were coming out, nobody wanted to touch each other, and you thought you were going to go home and kill your family because there was these super bugs that were resistant to antibiotics. They told all of us nurses and medical staff to take off your clothes outside the house, wash your clothes, and then hang them in the sunlight, because sunlight kills everything. It's sort of like nature is a natural healer. And so as the days start to progress into spring and sun happens out there, encourage people get out in the vitamin D. It will slow the process. It will speed the process of healing up. And so, you know, I wouldn't venture a guess to say that we're probably, you know, who knows, 2 weeks to 2 months plus. But in the meantime, I'm finding my community with conference calls like this, and I'm very grateful for those organizations who are putting this together.
Well, thank you. So thank you all for being here today. That was a great conversation. Really appreciate your time. Heather Mikesell from American Spa Magazine, Garrett Mersberger, chairman of ISPA, Michael Tompkins, partner at Hutchinson Consulting. Really appreciate your time and expertise. And stay tuned. GSN plans to do this webinar every Tuesday. We'll have a different set of panelists. And then this Thursday at 3 o'clock, we have a webinar that is, this is a spoiler alert, with a tech partner called Atmos Air. And they have developed a ionic cleansing system for HVAC systems that kills the coronavirus. And it has been vetted by the head of NYU Medical School, and it's already been installed in a number of places that we are familiar with, like in LA, the Staples Center, or in other large sports arenas, and it's also in LAX. So, and just this past week, it was installed in the Vatican. So join us on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and you can learn about this tech solution. It's not super expensive. It's easy to implement. And we will continue to do our best at keeping everyone informed and bringing you together to talk about the current situation. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.